Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Masterclass bonus segment, Module 15, Successfully Hiring an Investment Banker. And I figured the best way to go about figuring out how to hire an investment banker is to bring in one of the best investment bankers that I've had a chance to work with over the past 15 years. Bruce Altman, who is a managing director at Eureka Capital and an investment banking boutique firm, is here to talk to us a little bit about some of the fundamentals around hiring an investment banker. So welcome, Bruce, and thank you for our masterclass participants being able to have an opportunity to hear some of your insights. So thank you for that.
My pleasure. Good to be with you, Brett, today.
So let's just start off fundamentally, right? Let's just talk about what is an investment banker and what is your role?
Sure. So in short, we're a trusted advisor to a business owner who's considering a transaction.
Right.
We're in the process with our client, helping our client all the way through from preparation to negotiation to documentation to closing. And we're a holistic advisor looking at the transaction, not just the monetary benefits, the financial benefits for our client, but also some of the non-financial terms and the ins and outs of the specifics of the deal.
And so a lot of times when I'm talking to business owners, CEO founders specifically, the question will come up, well, when do I call an investment banker?
So, ideally, we'd like to be involved as early as possible with the business owner when he or she is considering a transaction, a sale of their company. Oftentimes we do get calls from business owners when they're in the middle of a transaction or they've been approached by somebody who wants to buy their company. That's fine too. But in a perfect world, we'd be involved early before a business owner actually engages in dialogue with potential buyers, so we can help that owner prepare the business and get ready for what is a process. It's a real process to sell one's company.
Yeah, it's interesting. We have this discussion and we talk about the process, and a lot of times CEO founders don't understand the role between the investment banker and what their job is in that particular role. And the way that I define it is they're the ones that help to continue to build incremental value, right? When you have a potential buyer that comes to you and says, I'm interested in your business, that's one buyer. And whatever their value is that they say your business is worth is essentially the value that in most cases you can take. What I love about bringing someone like you in on a potential opportunity for a seller is when you're able to bring in other potential buyers, right? So it's not just that single buyer that has interest, it's also bringing in other buyers. And what that does is that really makes that individual or that entity that's interested in your business really focused and making sure that they get the best price so that they can actually buy the business. And so that generates incremental value and you get the best price. So auction is what we talk about, is one of the ways to continually build that incremental value. And I think that's where, Bruce, you've done a tremendous job with my client base around being able to maximize enterprise value through that auction process as an investment banker. Talk a little bit about some of the pitfalls. You hear some of these stories, and unfortunately horror stories of hiring an investment banker. It doesn't work out. They're in some of the terms that with an agreement or an engagement with an investment banker. What do you think some of the pitfalls our CEO founders of the masterclass should be wary of, or should be paying attention to when hiring an investment banker?
So, first and foremost, I'd say, if you're going to hire an investment banker, hire somebody that you think you can trust. I always tell clients, listen, focus on, somebody who will tell you the truth, not necessarily what you want to hear.
I know that's hard.
and that's often hard, and that's often hard for business owners.
Right.
Hiring an investment banker is really a partnership. In the sense that, typical engagement terms for an investment banker are that you're going to work for them over a multi-month period of time, and you're going to be tied to them for the process and some period of time. If the process ends, some period of time after that.
Sure.
So you really have to be comfortable with who you're engaging with, what their credentials are. Do they have specific knowledge in your industry sometimes? And whether or not they're going to be consistently there with you, working with you and for you through the end of a transaction, and that they're going to be considerate of your business, of the particulars around your family situation, perhaps, or your employees, and sensitive to the issues as a business owner that you're going to be focused on, in addition to just getting the highest value.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. One of the things that I share is it's not just about what your role is, it's the personality and how well the investment banker gets along with the CEO founder. A lot of times CEO founders will say, well, I'll negotiate it myself. And in some cases, there may be an ability to do that to some degree. But you do want to be able to step out of that situation, because the negotiation can become emotional, right? You have a person that's sitting on the other end of the table talking about a company that you've built, and talking about it in a way that may not necessarily be a positive discussion. And so emotions can get the best of individuals. And so you need an intermediary to be able to sit in between you and the potential buyer, so that you can have candid discussions and make sure that that person is someone that you get along with, because they're going to have to keep you at the negotiating table in those times where it's difficult. And Bruce and I, we've had this discussion many times with a lot of clients that we've worked with, and I would say that you do a tremendous job. But I think the other component that is probably even more important is how you work from a personality perspective with the clients, and your ability to keep them at the table for the right reasons and negotiate hard for their outcome, I think is, in my mind, the best advice, and one of the reasons why you want to hire an investment banker. And so I think that's important for our masterclass members to understand. A couple of more questions. When you think about compensation, how are you compensated? A lot of times, CEO founders, there's such a wide variety between compensation. You have brokers, and then you have investment bankers. Why don't we answer that question first? What's the difference between a broker and investment banker?
So there is a big difference, brokers tend to make introductions to potential buyers, for example, and then they tend to step out of the picture, leaving a client to kind of negotiate and sort of fare on his own with potential buyer. The investment banker does just the opposite of that. We get involved, we roll up our sleeves, we get to know a client's business inside and out. We get to help our client articulate the value drivers of their business and present it to a defined buyer universe that we coordinate with our client fully on. And we help our client hold discussions, negotiations, and help our client through due diligence with one or more buyers, always with a mind, to help our client achieve his objectives in terms of price, but also some of the non-financial terms. And very importantly, to hold value in the end, because a potential buyer, might express interest at a certain price, but you want to hold that price at the end of due diligence, because a process can take many, many months, and you want to make sure that they're, at the end of the day, when they're standing there ready to sign, that what you've agreed upon in principle early on is what you actually close upon. So we immerse ourselves in the process in a way that a broker would not.
So then talk to me about compensation, because it's interesting with brokers that, there's a commission, right? And that number is, I've seen in some cases north of 10%. And so talk to me a little bit about compensation structure and kind of what we consider to be in market, right? And for those that are listening, there's in market and then there's out of market. In market is kind of what's the norm in the way of terms. Out of market is that they're outside of kind of normal terms. A lot of times you'll hear that when we're talking about negotiating an LOI or negotiating a purchase offer agreement or a purchase price agreement for a client, where the terms in that deal and that contract are kind of standard terms, right? Talk a little bit about the standard compensation terms for an investment banker.
Sure. So our typical engagement, calls for a modest retainer which is really just to demonstrate that our client has commitment to moving forward with the process. Our client's never obligated to close a transaction. That's always 100% their decision. It's really not how we make our living as investment bankers. We make our living on success fees. You called it a commission. It's the same thing essentially, but it's a success fee, which is a couple of percent generally of the purchase price. We have some minimum fees that we require at Eureka. Most banks do have that. And that is paid only if and when our client closes the deal. So they'll owe us a fee, a success fee. When they close, it's say a couple of percent of the purchase price. And, you know, if we've done our job well, and we think we usually do, and that's why we're in business for many, many years, you know, we've created a lot more value than our success fee in incremental purchase price for our client. They've generally got multiples of that in terms of incremental purchase price that they otherwise would not have got. So that's our pitch to business owners.
You know, what I would say for those that are listening to this particular module, one of the areas that I think really, you know, Bruce and team on the investment banking side create a tremendous amount of additional value is during the due diligence process. I think a lot of, you know, business owners, CEO founders understand that it's a very difficult stage or phase within a transaction, but I don't think people really understand how difficult it really is until that LOI is signed and they receive that first, you know, kind of due diligence request list that is in some cases 6 to 10 pages on varying issues and items that they've probably never thought about when running their business. And your ability to help navigate that for them on behalf of them for the buyer is something that I think is incredible and I think is very valuable. Last thing I'm going to ask you is for our masterclass members, if there was one piece of advice that you would give them around where they are in their business and using an investment banker, what would that be?
I think it would be prepare, meaning that, you know, before you get in serious conversations with a potential buyer or potential universe of buyers, you really want to be ready for those conversations because your transaction, if you're serious about transacting, will go a lot better, a lot more smoothly. And this is where we can add value early in the process before there's even any dialogue with a potential buyer, any conversation, we can help in that preparation process. So my advice generally to business owners is if you're going to think about selling your company, you know, have some discussions with me, with somebody like me, to talk about what you might want to think about doing in advance of even beginning a process, and then get us involved as your investment bankers early so we can help you in that preparation.
That's awesome. And for those that are in this module, if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see that Bruce's information is there. If you have questions, please reach out to him, click on the link and email him, and I'm sure he'll be able to respond to any and all of your questions regarding your business. Well, you know, Bruce, again, this has been very helpful to our masterclass members. Appreciate the time. And as usual, it's always a pleasure working with you. Thank you.
Great, Brett. Thank you very much.
Take care, everyone.